It is. I do think the injuries to Rasmus and Euro basically will make us not sell people. Don't think Victor is going to go now. I personally don't think we're going to sell Cass or Scott. We need their goals.
I know, Joshua Jack. I know you're more of the pessimistic side of a Man United fan. You're not bad. You're not like a super negative, but you are very cautious. And I understand why you think that, but at the same time, you don't go through all these negotiations with all these players that you want to sign just to be like, oh, two of our players are injured. Okay, no, we give up. We can't sell these guys now. We have to keep the same people in. Nah, it's not like you're trying to add. It's not like you're just selling people and that you're not trying to add. You're trying to replace. So because we're trying to replace, I can still see Scott going. I can still see Victor going. I can still see people going, and we're getting the players that we need. Because at the end of the day, Ineos haven't come here just to be reactionary to what's happening at the football club. They have a plan. So yes, Yara's been injured. They didn't plan for that. Hoyland's injured again. Didn't plan for that. But they bought Xerxes for a reason. They've been targeting Branthwaite and or Dillix for a reason. I would just be like, let's just chill. Let's wait until towards the end of the window before we start doing up. I'm worried that we're not going to sell the certain players.
Yeah, it makes I get where you're coming from, PTSD and all that. However, Rasmus being sold out, it's going to be sort of 6 weeks. We've got Xerxes. We've got. I think it's more likely that Sancho doesn't go than McTominay. We're negotiating McTominay's sale. Him leaving is going to generate income for the likes of Ugarte. On Casemiro's not going. I think we've all got to accept that he's staying. And I know a few people have criticized him in other games. I've actually been quite impressed with him this preseason. And I actually think with more legs around him, with a system that isn't going to expose his age, he'll have a decent season for us. And I'm fine with that. So I won't worry about Cass. But Scott, I think, will still be sold. Lindelof, as an example, again, where's the logic in our top new talented centre-back's injured? We've negotiated a deal for De Ligt, who's better than Lindelof. But what we're now going to decide to do is not sell Lindelof because Yoro's injured. Now, you just sell Lindelof and bring in De Ligt, who hasn't even gone on the preseason tour with Bayern because he's waiting on this move. So for me, it's more about us waiting for the right money for these players. I can't bemoan that approach because I've kicked off that we haven't done that for 11 years. So I would become a huge hypocrite to go, well, no, let's just sell them at any price. Let's just clear the squad. No, we've got to sell them at the right price. And it looks like we're going to get close to £30 million for Scott McTominay, as opposed to accepting the first bid that came in at about 12.5. And that extra bit of money is what's going to help us sign these better quality players. But I do get the PTSD, Joshua Jack. I just think that we have to look at the way we operate differently now that we have proper football people running the club.
Yeah, Terry, question. You mentioned Sancho there, that him not leaving. Are you open for him coming back? Because he's had his thing with Ten Hag, the apologizer, pull it under the bridge. He's been playing, and I think he's been playing well. Maybe not as good as Rashford or Ahmad, but I see him as an asset to the squad. I'm like, yo, out of all the attackers now that I thought we had to get rid of, it's basically only Anthony that I'm looking at. I'm like, yo, you've got to go.
Yeah, look, I think, again, I would be a big hypocrite to turn around and say that it's a clean slate for everybody and exclude Sancho. I'm going to keep the same energy for him as I've done for everybody else. Everybody at Man United up until this summer was working under a toxic, broken culture and system. And we've all said things about players. We've all made comments about players or managers or this is working, it isn't during that time. And we as fans have also been infected with the rot that the Glazers helped set in. And I don't know about every other Man United fan. I can only talk for myself, but I feel as a United fan, I feel fresh watching us. I feel excited. I feel as though there is light at the end of the tunnel. And and the reason why I'm open to it, it's not about my personal feelings. I don't have a personal issue with Sancho. I wasn't happy with a lot of his performances for us, but I also wasn't happy with the way the club treated him. And if you add those two things together, it maybe softened my criticism of him somewhat. But for me, it's about I'm trusting the people now running our football club. And some people have the outlook in life of you've got to earn my trust and respect. So until you've done a number of things that make me like and or trust you, I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I typically work in the opposite way, especially when it comes with people that have a pedigree to their name or experience to their name. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and the respect to begin with. And if I employ a web designer for the Football Terrace tomorrow, and I'm so impressed with his work, his attitude, he comes across brilliantly, I'm not going to employ him, and the first thing I do is go, by the way, I'm not going to trust you, you're not going to have my respect, and you have to prove to me you're good enough for this job before I show you any respect. That for me is a pretty toxic way of treating people. Again, when you take the sort of theory of it and put it into reality. So I trust the people now running Manchester United. So to answer the Sancho question, it's if they are confident that he is working hard enough, the problems are behind him, the way we have treated him has now changed, and it could become fruitful for the club, then it's a decision that I can get behind in the short term. If he stays for a season, doesn't really deliver, doesn't perform consistently for us for one reason or another, then you can say, well, we've given it another go, hasn't worked, see you later. We're at the beginning, and I know this triggered rivals, but it's so true. We are at the beginning of a genuine club rebuild. Some of the players are going to have to go this summer, but we were never getting rid of a 23-man squad in one summer. There was always going to be players remaining from last season. We were never getting rid of anybody. And then what happens is certain players were going to step up. Certain players maybe don't look as good. You know, we're looking at Rashford today. Rashford was looking quite sharp. Rashford was looking decent. And I'm looking again, well, I don't know who it was that tweeted. Somebody tweeted saying, what's the manager going to do? Is he going to bring Garnacho back in on the left? Because Ahmad looked like he's got the right-hand side on lock. And I'm sitting there rubbing my hands together saying, at last. We're not saying, well, it can only be these two that play because no one else is in form. We're actually looking at it. So everybody's got a chance if you stay here next season. And who is available in the market, who we can bring in to replace you, who's willing to actually buy you, all these things we're going to dictate who should go. And one of the things I want to stick with philosophy-wise that I believe in is the first players I want out are the individuals that do not want to be here. So if Sancho was turned around and said, look, I really want to try and have another go, I would prefer that to somebody who is really open to leaving and hoping to leave. I don't really care who that person is. So, yeah I'm open to it. And I think he's played quite well during pre-season. It's the only element it's hard to judge. We've still probably got half of our first 11 not here.
Yeah.
So it's everybody. Like, how much better would Sancho look with those 6 players in our team? Probably even better. So, for me, it's a big mixture.
And if you've got Ahmad, if you've got Sancho, you've got Rashford, and you've got Garnacho, you've got 4 wingers who collectively can play across the front three. Not front three, sorry, the 2 wide positions. And also, 2 of them give you creative sparks in Ahmad and Sancho, and 2 of them are goal threats in Garnacho and Rashford. So that just helps our team with balance. It just helps our team with different permutations, and whatever oppositions put at us, we've got the tools to deal with it. You can't let that go. You can't just say, you know what, Sancho, off you go because you're just trash, and Rashford, you're rubbish, and Garnacho's not good. Like, you can't just do that.
Yeah, of course. And, look, and there are reports from France that he is close to agreeing personal terms with PSG. And if that's true, and then it just transpires that he was happy to stay, but he preferred to leave, then equally, I'm very happy for him to go. This is for me. I'm just in a mindset of objectivity when it comes to Man United, where I don't want to allow my personal I don't have personal feelings towards Sancho. I don't think he's been a good enough signing, but I give Rashford a pass to a degree when I'm like, well, look at he's had to deal with since he's been a first team player, the different managers and systems, the up and downs. If Paul Pogba was damaged by this club, how the hell weren't Rashford and Sancho, if that makes sense? Yeah. So, if Martial was damaged by the club, so was Sancho. So I think you've got to keep the same energy. But I want people here next season who really want to be here. That are really equally. There are some like Lindelof and McTominay who I just don't think are good enough that I also want to see moved on. Yeah. And I suppose I am in a sort of, I'm very forthright when it comes to that belief. But Yeah, look, I think it's year one of the rebuild. In fact, it's month one of the rebuild. Inside year one, we were never getting rid of everybody, and this is where fans have, I think, have got to learn to just be a little bit more grown up. Is it yes? I'm not sure what Staffy thinks of this, but I'll use Staffy as an example. Me and him, if we were to list of players that have to go this summer, there'd probably be some names that were the same and some names that were different. But for me, I'm not gonna. That's it. Don't trust any of us now. They didn't get rid of the players that I wanted them to get rid of. I think that's sort, and I'm not saying Staffy thinks that. I'm using as an example that we have different views. Same as if he gets everyone gone that he wants and I don't, I'm not going to do that either. I think it's about being open-minded and trying to be as positive as you possibly can at the beginning of this rebuild, because the players are going to need it, because it isn't going to be perfect. We're not going to be amazing straight away. We're not going to be at Arsenal or Liverpool or City's level in the first 2 months. In my humble opinion, I don't think we'll be there. So what we need is encouragement, because it's not as though we've got a new squad. And I saw a rival say today, the manager, though, he spent over 500 million. How can you not have the same expectations on him as you do Arteta or Pep or what you had for Klopp? Well, or even like I have for Slot this season. But you all say how badly we've been run. You all laugh at how much money we've wasted. You laugh at how the coaching was poor. You laugh at how bad the medical team has been. You laugh at all these facets and elements of my club. Now that for the first time in 11 years, we're trying to address them. We're wiping the slate clean. We've redefined the manager's position. We're starting again. You're like, well, no, you can't start again because of all the stuff you've done before. What, all the stuff that you laughed at? All the stuff that you said was bad, all the stuff that you criticized. This is the problem. People are speaking out of both sides of their mouths when it comes to Manchester United. And I'm actually quite enjoying it. I'm enjoying seeing the panic and the frustration and the anger. It's great.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And even with like Man United fans and they're complaining about obviously the sales. But then I think sometimes fans don't look across the world of football and just see the market and the climate that teams are in. If Manchester City, who are renowned for getting rid of players who aren't good enough for their team within 2 years, can't get rid of Calvin Phillips or Cancelo permanently, then yeah, we're going to struggle. Arsenal struggling to get rid of. Look how long it took for them to get rid of Cedric and Arneni. They're trying to get rid of Nketiah. It's just not happening. You know what I'm saying? Like Liverpool, who they still got? They still got Tsimikas. You know what I mean? They still got all these. So every player, every club have these players that are just harder to sell than normal. And we go on, Dan.
No, I'm just agreeing with you, mate. And I think that's the element. When you feel, I feel like this is something not just football fans have got, that you've got to do this in real normal life. You might look at a situation and go, "This is terrible," but then you have to start to evaluate your position, investigate your position, and in a football intense, it's okay. We haven't sold enough people yet. I'm fuming, awful. As you've just said, who has? Who has? What's the market saying? If everybody's struggling to sell players and it isn't, your club isn't the anomaly that's doing poor, there is no reason to be outright angry about it. And I think that's the problem that I typically have with a lot of football fans in the modern day world. They have such tunnel vision. They are so shoebox. Their head's so down. They're almost so negative that they can't see the wider situation. Like we were talking about the other day, Standard FC believe, why would you give Amas and Collier a chance? Go out and buy a left back and go out and buy a midfielder that are better than them. Great. If you apply that Standard FC, also think that every club should operate in the same way around the whole world. So if nobody gave young players a chance and developed them and just bought players that are already established that are better, I don't actually think there'd be enough players for everybody to put out first teams. But say there was, within 10 years, you've got no football players left because nobody's developed the youngsters. This is what I mean by any theory that people have. It's fine if they give an example of right now, Man United need to do this. That would make sense. But most of these people, they try and apply their logic to every club and every scenario and every single moment. And they are just outright wrong. Because as soon as you start to apply that logic or broaden your investigation into that thought process, you realize it falls down pretty quickly. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with what you've said there. Terry, we need a serious look at the medical staff. I agree to an extent. let me just say this. Rasmus's hamstring going, you could argue, are we overworking him in training and he pulled a muscle? Nobody else has pulled a muscle, though. Yeah, touch wood. But what's happened to Lenny? It's an impact injury that's broken a small bone on the top of his foot. That's not on the doctor. It's not on the medical team. Unless he was playing with a fractured bone and we ignored it, and there's no reports of that, this isn't a muscle injury. This isn't, oh, look, he's red zoned. His body's in the red zone and they've played him. This wasn't, I've got this niggle and then in my hamstring and then it snapped. This is an accident. This doesn't even equate to somebody being injury prone. Nobody said that Aaron Ramsey was injury prone when somebody broke his leg. Oh my God, Arsenal's medical team are awful because a player had their leg broke. This is exactly the same principle. Man United's medical team can't be called bad because a player had a bone in his foot break for another person on the other team stepping on him. So for me, it's yes, it needs to be looked at, but there have been players added to it this year. And let's see how things work out. Yes, it's not a great start and it's annoying. It's like say Rashford's injured tonight. Mm-hmm. That's nothing to do with the medical team. His ankle and foot got trodden on. And that's where I think we have to. Yeah.
No, that's funny about medical teams as well. Medical teams, you analyze them after the injuries occurred and how long they take to recover and are they making the right decisions and all these different things. That's when you analyze them.
It's the sports science team that you assess for the muscular injuries prior to things happening. Maybe the physios to a certain degree, because they're the individuals that are meant to be they're the ones that have the technology to predict where people's bodies are. The physios are looking at it and checking these things. That isn't really the doctors and the medical team's job per se. It's a combination. So when people say United got a really bad doctor, that's why their players are getting injured, prove that theory. And now the theory might, well, he was at Arsenal and had loads of injuries left and we don't have any injuries. I actually hope this doesn't happen because I don't ever wish injuries on anybody. So in reality, I don't want this to happen. But from a kind of academic perspective, if this year Arsenal was to get a lot of injuries when they didn't have them last year, does that suddenly mean last year's medical team had become bad? Or could it just be bad luck? Now, there's no doubt Man United's medical team made some really bad mistakes last year, but a lot of those people have gone. For instance, when Lissandro came back and we didn't check his foot properly and there was still a broken bone in it, cool. I also think some of the training methods last year were leading to injuries, and I'm hoping that's being addressed. But that is about the sports science team looking at that and the director of football. That is one of the responsibilities of Dan Ashworth. He understands football to look at it and go, hang on, what are we doing? Why are you running the players into the ground this way? So, look, I think there's a combination of things. I don't just think it's about, you got a bad doctor, that's why all your players are getting injured. Least of all, Lenny Euros. Like, it's a crazy one for me. But it's a stretch. But as we already know, people want to try and make everything about Man United. Is Luke Shaw still injured? Well, obviously not. He played in the final of the Euros, mate. He's on holiday. Although I actually would have liked to see him come straight back into the team because he can't be tired because he missed the last 6 months of the season.
No, Luke Shaw, man, he would have been on the stretcher already, man. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what? Take as much rest as you need, Luke. Take as much rest as you need.
No, I hear you. Look, I want to say